Hey guys, Monique here, and in this video I'm going to be live blogging my read of Paris by Paris Hilton, the memoir by Paris Hilton. So I'm starting it today. I'm actually heading out of town. I'm gonna head on a plane right now to Colorado. So I'm gonna read it while traveling to Colorado, and I intend to give you guys a live blog update every 50 pages or so. So I will let you know how it goes. It looks like there's 353 pages. So I'm really, really excited. I've heard a lot of good things about this book. So I'm just like really excited to dive into it and just kind of see really what's been going on with Paris Hilton. Like I don't know much more about her than what I learned about her as a young millennial in the early 2000s. So I'm really excited to hear a little bit more about her. Haley Hughes was the one who recommended this book. She said it was really, really good, and I'm really excited to read it. So I will keep you posted on my progress. Okay, so here I am in Colorado. I started reading Paris on the plane, and I just got to page 50, and I'm gonna go to bed, but I wanted to film a video because this book is amazing. I can't tell if it's because I'm a millennial or if I really like her writing or if it's all just like super interesting, but I am loving this book. First of all, like Paris is 4 years older than me, so she's a millennial. You all know how much I love my millennial things and millennial memories and anything that can take me back to like the 90s or the early 2000s is kind of like just an obsession for me. So this girl is talking about the stuff that she enjoyed when she was young. Crushing on Edward Furlong. Okay, she actually dated Edward Furlong, so like let's start with that. Jumanji, hello. She also went to a Catholic school, just like me. I went to a Catholic school till 4th grade, and she talked about the nuns being really scary, and I remember that. The nuns were very scary, and she talks about her upbringing, and she talks about how she has ADHD and how it's a part of her that she has grown to accept. And she talks about how she lived with ADHD as a child and was never diagnosed with it, and how the nuns would always yell at her because she was so fidgety, she couldn't focus, and she didn't realize what it was that she had. And it's so cool because she talks about all these famous people like in her life as she's growing up. Like she sat on Andy Warhol's lap when she was younger because her parents would party with Andy Warhol. And in the beginning, she kind of like talks about more recent years where she's like DJing with Christina Aguilera. But when she's younger, she talks about hanging out with Nicole Richie and just being like best friends with her and getting into trouble and like kissing boys on the Vegas Strip when you're like 13. It's just like all this stuff that she did. But the thing is, she tells the story like from the perspective of like this very happy, like just like fun personality. And like the way she tells it is also very natural and like not, it's like a different like method of storytelling than I've ever seen. Like in it, she like, as she's writing, she's talking about music and how much she loves it. And then there's a part where she's like, note, must make a playlist of the music that I mentioned in this book. And then another time she's mentioning like how she had pet rats, like she loved animals. And she's like, note, husband to buy me a birthday rat, like a surprise birthday rat. Like it's almost like she's like writing a story like in her diary for everyone to read kind of thing. I just love the writing style. It just is fun. It's like told in a really fun way, but also like she's got a personality. Like it's comedic. Like it's really funny. Like I laughed out loud multiple times. And there was a passage that she wrote where she talked about how loving yourself, especially when you have these like ADHD tendencies to be distracted and seem like you're coming off careless and all this stuff. Loving yourself through that is like an act of rebellion, because most people, when they are scolded for having those kinds of tendencies, they tend to follow in line. At least that was something with me. Like if I did something that, seemed careless or judgmental or rude, I hate myself. But she is learning to love herself through it. And she talks about how that is like an act of rebellion. There's this part where she like talks about going skydiving on her 21st birthday, which is also something I did when I was like 25 or 26. And she's like, she talked about how it was like this very like moment where like she did something terrifying and came out really like good on the other end. And she was like, brace yourself, bitches. I just also just love like her personality, how silly, how fun she is. She loves animals, and she was kind of like a tomboy growing up, but like also not. I'm really enjoying this book, and it cracks me up when she was talking about like her partying legacy, like how she knows how to party, and like how it's cute to be tipsy, but it's like gross to be drunk. And like, I just loved it. Like, I'm just loving it. So I'm 50 pages in, and I'm seriously very much enjoying it. And I'm getting to a point where it's like she's 13 and like things are happening with her and like a math teacher, and I'm getting a little like, oh no, this poor innocent girl, like going through this, like, so it's weird. So anyway, I'm on page 50, and, in the beginning of the book, she really just kind of talks about like her ADHD and like where she is now, but then it goes into her upbringing. And so, you read about when she was little, and, Bethany Frankel was like her nanny, and like she hung out with Kim Kardashian, and like, Nicole Richie was her bestie. And now it's like she's talking about her upbringing more like now in her preteen, like teenager phase. So I'm at the part where she's like 13. So I'll keep you guys posted on how it goes, but it's really good. I'm really enjoying it. I really, really like it. Hey guys, welcome back to the live reading vlog of Paris Hilton's memoir, Paris, which I am now on page 100. Last reading update was page 50, and now I'm on page 100, and we went from kind of learning about Paris's life at age 13, where she was kissed by her 20-something math teacher, which is kind of like where I left off, and then now we're transitioning to a different chapter in her life where she is now 15 and having to go to an emotional growth boarding school, something I've never heard of before ever and didn't even know about until reading this book. And from the last 50 pages to this next 50 pages, it really talks about her growth from, being kind of like this preteen to now being an official teenager. I think now at this point in the book, she's like 16. And from 13 to 16, it really showed this moment where she was trying to grow up, go to parties, raves, dance, just be out with the people with music and enjoy life. And she wanted to pursue a modeling career, and her parents were just not having any of it. They had their own experience with the modeling, and her mother had her own experience with the modeling and acting industry. And she was like, no, you will not be a model, like not till you're 18. But Paris was just like, no, I'm not having any of this. And this was around the time where she school hopped a lot. So like she was at one school, and then, given that she had ADHD, she basically couldn't focus. She couldn't sit for long periods of time, and she would end up misbehaving and then getting kicked out of that school and going to another one. One of my really favorite parts about this book so far is what she told a nun who was interviewing her to go to a private school called Sacred Heart, and she basically told the nun, I'd rather kill myself than go to your school. So
I just thought that was awesome. So she didn't end up going to that school. She ended up going to this school called Dwight, which was for other troubled teens, and she ended up not really fitting in there. But apparently Macaulay Culkin went to that school, maybe. Christina Ricci. No, I'm confusing things. It wasn't Dwight. It was another one. It was another prep school that she went to with Macaulay Culkin and Christina Ricci, but she ended up getting kicked out of there, I think, and then going to Dwight. But anyway, so yeah, we're at this point where like she's growing from 13, 14, 15. She wants to be a model. She loves partying. She loves going out. And her parents are just like, no, you are a problem child. You are too much. She goes and lives in Palm Springs for a little bit. We also find out that she is sexually assaulted. She is basically date raped when she is 15. And she also was dating Aaron Spelling's son, Randy. And she actually had to stay in Palm Springs with her grandma for a little while because it was just like her parents were just like, no, like it seems like they were just like, we cannot handle you. Because essentially she was sneaking out of the house every single night and just like going and partying, and she would be gone for a couple days. You know, she would just party, crash somewhere, and then wake up and do it again. And this was like, you know, young, like 15 years old. So of course her parents were at their wits' end. And so they decided to do this really horrible thing to her, it sounds like, and send her to this emotional growth boarding school. Like, it sounds really terrible. I just started that section. So basically she was kidnapped in the middle of the night, ripped from her bed, blankets torn off, pulled from her bed, and basically carried out by these two big guys and taken into a car and taken to the airport, where her family was living at the Waldorf Astoria, and then they just like they took her out of bed in the middle of the night and took her on this plane to LA, 85 miles away from LAX in the San Bernardino Mountains. And she goes to this school where they give you tough love. Well, so far they made her strip down, so she was naked, and they gave her a body cavity search in front of like other people. That's the welcome to the boarding school so far. So a lot of this is really traumatic to read. So, you know, if any of you guys have any, you know, issues around these issues, you know, major trigger warning, because it seems like she's going to go through a lot in these next 50 pages, because this is the part where she's really talking about her emotional growth boarding school trauma. And I feel so badly for her. Like, it just sounds really terrifying, and my heart goes out to her. And it is kind of hard to read. The sexual assault part was really hard to read. So it's really hard to read, but it's still really eye-opening. I didn't know about this like troubled teen industry where basically teens who were out of control were sent to these places where they were force-fed drugs and, you know, forced to comply and all this stuff. So I'm really curious about her experience there. I'm really grateful that she's brave enough to share her story. So that's where I'm at now. She's 16 and she just got enrolled into this boarding school. So I'm really curious to see how it goes. So I will update you guys in the next 50 pages. I am on page 100, and I'll let you know how the next 50 pages turn out. Hey guys, so it's time for another update on the Paris Hilton memoir. I read up to page 160-ish, I think. So it's a little more than the next 50 pages. But I have to say that this is probably the most traumatizing part of the book. This next segment explores Paris Hilton's experience in CEDU, which is like this emotional growth boarding school. And it was marketed to parents as a school that was supposed to, you know, help your troubled teen, that was supposed to give them tough love. And they told parents, if your child calls you and tells you that they are being abused, they are just trying to manipulate you, so do not listen to your child, because this is exactly what a troubled teen would do. It's harrowing and terrible and scary. And of course, I do want to have sympathy for parents that did put their children through what Paris Hilton went through at CEDU. And Paris Hilton in the book actually says, you know, she does have empathy and sympathy for her parents because she knows that they wouldn't have put her there if they knew what was going on really. The really just upsetting and angering part for me is just that they didn't listen to Paris. And I know that they had reason not to because she would lie to them. But I just feel like it's so important to listen to your child. I'm not a mom, but I have seen evidence of this in my mom parenting us. And it's just really important to listen to your child. And hearing how Paris actually escaped from CEDU multiple times. And each time when she cried for help, someone returned her there. And it was just really upsetting to read. It was really hard to get through. And this section of the book is definitely one of the ones that make you cringe, make you just like want to throw the book in anger across the room because this poor child is being abused at this school. And she, like, every time she escapes and she calls for help, that person reports her back to the school and it's just so sad. And like, I just feel like I'm a very like, I don't like to use the word empath because I'm not sure if that's what I am, but I really can feel for people. And when she tells me that she had to go on this excruciatingly long hike with 80 pounds in her backpack and sit in a tent for 3 days with like very little water, no food, and go on this like vision quest exercise that they forced the kids to do during this like really long hike that they had to do to graduate. And it was like, she basically was in this tent, I think with like, maybe it was like, you know, there was a fire there. So it was like a lot of smoke. There was like a fire inside the tent and they basically sat there for 3 days in the tent, just sitting there. And the only time they could get out of the tent was to use the restroom. But she was like, we never had to use the restroom because they barely gave us anything to consume. And she said when a kid would pass out, they would drag him out of the tent into the snow until they woke up and then put him right back in. So this is just like really, really terrible. They would do like just really, really awful things. And I'm just so sad for Paris. And I know that she's older and she's doing a lot of work on herself now. I mean, this was when she was 16 through 18. Obviously, she's in her early 40s now, but this kind of stuff really sticks with you. And I really think she's really courageous and brave for sharing this. I, of course, went down a rabbit hole of looking up all this CEDU stuff. It shut down. The school shut down, I think, in 2007. Ish, maybe 2005, somewhere in the early 2000s, because of all the reports of abuse. And finally, it was just too much and children died there. You know, people actually died there. And 2 boys went missing in 93, 94. And it's just, and there was a lot of sexual assault going on, in particular with one psychiatrist. It's just excruciating to read. But it's eye-opening because I had no idea this stuff was happening. And it really was scary. I didn't even know the troubled teen industry was a thing. I didn't even know that that was happening to young adults. And luckily, you know, that whole thing was shut down, but who knows what's still going on, you know? I don't know. And so Paris Hilton now is, you know, really working towards bringing awareness to these things, transparency to what goes on in these types of schools if they still exist. So I'm really grateful for the work that she's doing in bringing awareness about this stuff because it really is traumatizing to hear about. And I never want to read that section of the book again. It was really hard to read, but really eye-opening too. So now I'm reading about kind of her end of her journey there. I think she's almost to the end. I'm hoping we're almost to the end of this section. I'm in the 160s now. So I will update you in the next 50 pages or so and let you know what happens to her next. Okay, I'm back with another update. It's been about another 50 something pages. I think I am getting to the end of the book. I am now on page 280 something. And for the first time in this book, I am getting a little annoyed with Paris and her personality. Just because, like, I read this line where she was like, saying how the school system failed her, which I know because she had ADHD and still does. But there was something about the way she said it where I was like, we know, like, I don't know. I kind of was like, okay, we know, you had a rough time, in school because of your ADHD. And I was kind of like over it, kind of like overhearing about it. And so I had a little bit of a glimmer of like, being a little annoyed with her personality. And then like later she was talking about like this manager who like screwed her over because he did not get her to like this Facebook launch party premiere thing. And I was like, okay. I was like, that's, I don't know. Not that it wasn't a big deal, but like, it was just that part of her personality where I was like, can't relate. Obviously because, she's Paris Hilton. I am not. And we have different interests and goals. But, like, I don't know. There was a couple lines where I just felt like I was getting a little, I don't know, annoyed by her personality a bit. Not because, like, the stuff that she was annoyed about was necessarily wrong. It was more just, like, her attitude towards it. Like part of me wanted to be like, okay, like, get over it. It's not all about you. I know that sounds harsh because like I really have loved her throughout this whole book, but I feel like now I'm maybe I'm just getting a little annoyed by her personality as I'm reading it. And so once you have a slight annoyance when you're reading a book or when you're learning about someone, it's like you can't turn it off. It's like you can't see them differently. And so, like, now when I continue to read the end of the book, I'm like, I still sympathize with her a lot, but I think I just kind of got a little turned off by her personality. I don't know why. And so this part of the book talks now about basically what most people know about her. She had a sex tape. She talks about that experience, which sounds pretty terrible. And she also talks about how she got a DUI, her time spent in jail. Also talks about like this really horrible South Park episode that was done about her, which sounds terrible. And just kind of like we're getting a little bit more into, her adulthood and just things about her that most people knew but didn't really know the full story on. And I am like definitely still feeling for her, and I love kind of like the way she looks at things. But like I said, I don't know, I got something flipped from like when I hit chapter like 16 or something like that. A couple of lines, they just kind of like threw me, and I wasn't expecting that. So that was just kind of like a random thing. But overall, I'm definitely still enjoying the book. I also am really interested in what she says on just like basically how the media treated her, Lindsay Lohan, Britney Spears, like in the early 2000s. It was really, really terrible. Like they basically treated them like garbage, like bimbos, like sluts, like whores, and that really was not fair. It really just sucks that we, still kind of live in that environment where people just want to trash talk celebrities, and they just don't understand them. And, I feel for them. Nobody deserves that kind of backlash, I mean, if you think about it, what were they so upset with Paris Hilton at? She was living her life. She was having a good time. She was being bubbly and fun. Like, I feel like the only reason people would have to make fun of that is if they were jealous, that they couldn't party all the time. I know I was when I was younger. I was really curious about Paris Hilton. I really was interested in like who she was, and like she was kind of a conundrum to me because I didn't know what it meant, why she was so famous. When I was younger, I just knew she was an heiress, and I was like, what does that even mean? Like, okay, she's an heiress, but why is she so famous? Why is she always in the media? Why is she always at all these events? You know, I just didn't know why. And so yeah, I don't really know where I was going with that, but like basically I just feel like back then I didn't really understand, and I think it was because of how she was portrayed in the media. And yeah, it just made me feel bad for her, you know, like, and it makes me rethink my current relationship with celebrities that I really enjoy, you know, seeing, you know, and gossiping about. You know, I love gossiping about Taylor Swift. Because, and not in a bad way, but just I'm obsessed with like with her life, and I really love Emma Stone. Like I like went down a rabbit hole of like Emma Stone and like all her movies and her backstory. I just love her, and Jennifer Lawrence, you know, like all these people who, you know, are celebrities. I'm just like, I love hearing about their life. And like I feel like obviously nowadays, like, you know, nobody's trashing them, but like, well, I'm sure people trash Taylor Swift all the time, but I love her. But I don't know. I don't really know if there is a coherent topic or theme to what I'm saying. It's just that I feel like celebrities then are different than now in a way where like I feel like people are more careful with how they, I guess, demean them. I think they were just a little bit worse in the 2000s, and nowadays I feel like it still happens, but I feel like it's a different kind of demeaning than it used to be. I feel like it was way worse in the 2000s. So anyway, I'm at this part in this book where it's getting to the end. I am very sad to be getting to the end of this book because I really have enjoyed it. It's really been a lot of fun, and I wish I could read it again. Like even though I'm saying like, yes, her personality is kind of turning me off a little bit in some ways, but like I am really still enjoying the book, and I'm really excited to now read about how she has, you know, how she's a mom, you know, and she has kids. And so I'm curious to see how that all unfolds. And yeah, it's been really interesting read. I'm very, very much enjoying it. And I'm so glad that she put that out into the world. And I am now really interested in learning more about her. I want to watch her YouTube documentary. I want to read her other books. I want to read just like more about her because now I just find the whole thing fascinating. So anyway, that's my reading update, and I will update once I am done with the book. Okay, so I finally finished Paris's book, and I have to say that I have been really heavily influenced by it, and I have been really just kind of changed by it. I know that in my last video, I was kind of talking about how there were some scenes where I kind of felt like she was kind of annoying me with her personality a little bit. And I can safely say that I am back to being in love with her again after this book, because I just feel like there's so much of her that was revealed in this book. There's so much that I just didn't know about her and her character. And I really classified her in my head as this like dumb blonde party girl when I was younger, you know? And I think it was largely due to the way the media portrayed her. And, you know, I didn't know her. I didn't know who she was. And I absolutely judged her by everything. And, you know, I never disliked her, but I think before I read this book, I had a lot of assumptions about her. And now I just see her in a whole different light. So the last section of the book, I don't remember how many pages it was, but the last section of the book really just talks about her life now. You know, she has 2 kids. She is married. She talks about putting this book together. She talks about like meeting up with Sia and putting an album together. And she just talks about being a jet setter and how she met her husband and just kind of like moving around, not moving around, but basically just like traveling so much for work and like traveling 250 days out of the year. And, her media company and her advocacy and, just kind of like everything she's doing now. And at the end of the book, I found out that they're going to do a series adaptation of this book with Dakota and Elle Fanning executive producing. And I'm like, that is going to be so good because like, I'm just like really excited about seeing this book come to life. And she talked about, like how painful it was to put this book out because not many people knew what she went through. And her parents also, were just kind of like blown away that this was out there. They never wanted this to get out there. And, it's just all kind of like mind blowing. And I'm such a fan, now. Like I'm obsessed and I'm like, okay, I really want to, like, I never listened to her music. Obviously I listened to her music back in the day, but like, I never recently looked into anything she's been doing. And I was just telling my husband, like, I never heard about her at all. Like in the news, like the last 20 years, like, no, okay, not 20 years, like the last like 10 years, I haven't heard anything about her. Like, I just didn't know if she was putting out music. I knew she was a DJ, but that was it. Like, I never knew about her fragrances, her products, her reality TV show, Paris in Love. I didn't know she got married. I didn't know anything. And I wasn't living in a hole either, like under a rock. I didn't know anything that was going on with her. Like, I listen to the radio, I somewhat read the news, and, she never showed up on my radar. Like, every time I thought about Paris Hilton in the last 5 to 10 years, I was like, ooh, what is she doing now? Like, nobody ever talks about her anymore. Like, she just went away. Like, that's literally how I felt. I never heard anything about her. And now when I start reading this book, I actually just saw that she was on C-SPAN yesterday, like talking about her advocacy for, like the troubled teen industry and child abuse and all that stuff. So like, it was kind of weird to me that like she, in my mind, kind of disappeared, but she's been doing all this stuff. Like, she's been doing all this stuff. And I don't know if I just wasn't in the right avenues to hear about it, but I had no idea she was doing all this stuff. And I kind of feel like, wow, like she just was not on my radar. But now I want to watch everything. I want to watch her This Is Paris documentary. I want to watch her Paris in Love show. I didn't even know there was a show out. And now I'm just like, I'm obsessed. And I'm listening to her music and I'm just like, I don't know. This book really turned me into a big fan. And I know that there were some times where she annoyed me, but I don't know. I'm really inspired by her because she really owned her brand and she owned herself. And the way she was portrayed, sometimes she couldn't control the way she was portrayed. Sometimes she kind of leaned into that kind of like dumb blonde role. But like, I don't know. I feel like she really took ownership of her narrative and like, was like, no, this is who I want to be. This is the direction I want to go. Like, and she did it. Like, I don't know. And actually, I will say, I was reading this while I was getting on a plane and I was coming home from Colorado and I had already scanned my ticket. I was just waiting to kind of get on the plane and a woman in front of me saw the cover and she was like, talk about really building and making, she said, talk about making a name for yourself. Right. And I was like, right. And then she's like, when did that book come out? And I was like, it just came out like spring of 2023. It's relatively new. And she was like, oh, okay. Like she was interested in it. And she had a kind word to say about it. Like she was like, talk about making a name for yourself. And I was like, right. So like, I don't know. I feel like, I don't know how the public perceives her, but I feel like nowadays it's different than it used to be. Nowadays, I feel like people are like, you know what? She's a boss bitch and she's a badass. And I think she's doing really cool stuff. And she's really, really inspiring to me because I recently stopped drinking over a year ago, and I've been getting more in touch with like my passions and things that I'm really interested in. And it seems like that's exactly what she's doing. I mean, she loves fashion and just like partying and music and technology and creativity, and like, and she's just leaning into that. And that's what I really love about it, because she's not trying to fit into like this one niche. Like, she's doing music, she's doing acting, she's doing like owning a business, she's doing her advocacy. Like, it's kind of like, I always my whole life was struggling with trying to figure out what my one path should be, but like sometimes it's multiple things, like, because I'm multi-passionate. I love reading, I love writing, I love advocating for sobriety now. Like, I like a lot of different things, and like I feel like you can make a name for yourself doing multiple things. I mean, look at Joe Rogan. I mean, think what you want about him, but he's not one thing. He's not just a podcaster. He also does comedy, and he also is into MMA and like all this stuff. And like, you don't have to pick one route, you can pick multiple. So, and you could still be successful. Imagine if Paris was like, I'm just going to do one thing. I'm just going to do fragrance. She does fragrance, she does music, she does acting. Like, that's the brand. It's like a lifestyle brand. And so I really, really like that. I really, really like that. And I really like what she had to say about just like her own suffering and her own trauma, and helping people with that too. I underlined something at the end, which I thought was really good, where she actually shares that she used a surrogate for her 2 babies. And early on, they found out that one of the babies miscarried. And she was saying how sometimes it's the loss of a family that you envisioned, or a self you thought you'd be. Oh, sorry, let me back up. She's talking about going through a miscarriage. And she said, please be kind to yourself. The loss of a pregnancy is so confusing and hard, no matter what the rest of the situation is. There's no right or wrong way to feel about it. It's different for everybody. It's not just the physical pregnancy itself. Sometimes it's the loss of a family you envisioned, or a self you thought you'd be. It can feel like the undoing of a dream, leaving you with the hard work of learning to dream again. And I know that sometimes when something really bad happens to you, like, it's hard work to go back and try to reclaim that old dream that you had. And I think that line just kind of really speaks to that, because she doesn't say, oh, it can take a long time for you to feel better. She says it take a long time for you to learn how to dream again, which I think is really beautiful, because we're all, learning, we're all working towards our dream. We all have dreams. And when they're shattered, it can be hard to kind of pick up the pieces, and it can be hard to, still have that dream. And so I think she really just put it perfectly when she said that. And there's a lot of great lines. Also, I really love the way that she uses her phrase sliving. You all know that she uses that phrase, that's hot. Like, we all know she uses that. But she also uses sliving, which she says she was trying to say slay and living your best life at the same time. So it came out sliving. And honestly, I am sliving for that, because she says it all the time in this book. She says, like, on New Year's Eve, she just made her famous sliving lasagna. And her house is called Slivington Manor, and she has a Roblox land called Sliving Land. And it's just like, and then she just talks about like being a sliving mom, like, it's so funny, just like the way that she incorporates her language. It's a very fun and playful way. And I really actually wish that I would have listened to the audiobook for this, because I've heard so many people talk about how great the audiobook is, and I feel like that would have even been better. I might even listen to it just to listen to it, like, because I feel like it would have, I heard this book in her voice, and I feel like to actually hear it in her voice would have been like really a treat, and I feel like I need to do that. She also said one more thing about the sliving, which I think is really funny. She was like talking about how people were saying, oh, you know, she has a baby, and people are still like saying, why are you traveling so much, and like, why are you doing a lingerie campaign, like you have a baby now. And she said, bottom line, I have to do motherhood my own way. Tons of love, no apologies. That's what it means to be a sliving mom. I just love it. So good. Okay, Paris, you have a new fan in me. I have always enjoyed watching you throughout the early 2000s, but now you got a little Hilton here. So that's what she calls her fans, by the way, little Hiltons. So I like it. I'm obsessed, and I can't stop talking about it. I'm sure my husband is so annoyed with me for I've been talking about Paris Hilton for like the last week. And now that she's come out with her album, well, her album is not out yet, but she's coming out with a song. She came out with a couple, the song I'm Free, which you have to read the book to learn why she loves that song. And she's coming out with a new album in September. Today it's end of June 2024 right now, so it's coming out in September 2024, and I'm really excited to hear the album. And now I'm gonna have to go watch the This Is Paris documentary, and I'm gonna have to watch Paris in Love season 1 and 2. I am obsessed, and when I get obsessed, I get obsessed. So anyway, I give this book 5 stars. It was fun to read, and obviously there were a lot of hard parts in it, but it was a really fun, like, exciting, adventurous, playful, relaxing, interesting read. There's some dark parts for sure. There's a lot. I was crying throughout a good portion of this book because of what she was talking about, but it's sliving. It's just sliving. I can't. It's so good. It's so good. So yeah, thanks for watching my long ass video blog on this book. I really liked it, and I hope you do too.